Hey, and welcome back to Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures. Today we're diving into the Old West's most feared and ruthless lawman, Jim Courtright, also known as Longhaired Jim. And let me tell you, what you'll find out about his life may surprise you.
If you want to dance with the girls, dance with the girls. If you want to drink at the bar, drink at the bar. But if anybody here fancies himself a gunman, you're in the wrong town. There's only one killer in Fort Worth, and that's me.
That line may sound like it's straight out of Hollywood, but the real Jim Courtright was every bit as dangerous as that clip just showed you. Let's take a close look at the man behind the legend and how his bloody reputation came to a violent end. Jim Courtright, born Timothy Isaiah Courtright in 1845, lived one of the more colorful and dangerous lives of the Old West. Born in Illinois, Courtright lied about his age to enlist in the Union Army during the Civil War, and it's even rumored that he took a bullet for General John A. Logan. But after the war, his path took a much darker turn. By 1876, Courtright found himself in Fort Worth, Texas, a wild town that desperately needed a lawman. He ran for city marshal, winning by just 3 votes, and quickly made a name for himself in Hell's Half Acre, the city's red light district, filled with saloons, gambling halls, and brothels. But Courtright's version of law enforcement was a bit unconventional. While he kept the streets somewhat under control, he also ran a protection racket, offering safety for businesses. For a fee, of course. And those who refused to pay, well, let's just say they didn't often live to tell the tale. Courtright was quick on the draw, with a reputation for violence. In 1877, he shot and killed a man suspected of murdering a deputy marshal on the same night of the crime. Some say he killed at least 4 others during his time as marshal, and although he lost his re-election in 1879, it wasn't the last the West would see of Longhaired Jim. But Jim Courtright's career as a lawman wasn't restricted to Fort Worth. In the late 1870s, he made his way to New Mexico, where things got even darker. After losing his position as city marshal, Courtright drifted to New Mexico, where he found work as a marshal and hired gun in the rough mining town of Lake Valley. There, his job was to protect a mining operation, but it wasn't long before he found himself embroiled in a deadly land dispute. In 1883, Courtright and his associate Jim McIntyre were hired by General John A. Logan, Courtright's former commander during the Civil War. Logan wanted to acquire land in New Mexico for a cattle company, but the land was already claimed by powerful ranchers like John Casey, W.C. Moore, and Henry Atkinson. These ranchers weren't interested in selling. They were expanding their own empires, often by force. 2 small landowners, Alexis Grostate and Robert Elsinger, were caught in the middle and labeled as squatters. That's when Casey, Moore, and Atkinson made the marshals an offer they couldn't refuse.
I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse.
Courtright and McIntyre might have expected a routine job, chasing cattle rustlers, but when they arrived, the real purpose of their mission became clear. The offer from Casey, Moore, and Atkinson wasn't about law and order. It was about power. They were there to drive Grostate and Elsinger off their land by any means necessary. If you're enjoying this video and you get any kind of value out of it, please consider subscribing to Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures. It turns out, based on the analytics, only 32% of you are actually subscribed. Now, subscribing is free, doesn't cost a thing, and it's calorie-free. So consider subscribing. It really helps improve the analytics and helps our channel grow. Thank you very much. Courtright knew the stakes. He wasn't just a lawman. He was a man who knew when to take a deal. And this time, the price of loyalty was paid in blood. Courtright wasn't just a lawman. He was a man who followed opportunity, no matter where it led. Whether it was Logan's cattle company or Moore's land grab, Courtright knew how to pick the winning side. And this time, the winning side meant pulling the trigger. What happened next was cold and calculated. The group marched the two men into a narrow ravine. Courtright, McIntyre, and the others opened fire, each firing a shot, guaranteeing that they were all equally guilty. Then, in a twisted move to cover their tracks, Courtright and McIntyre arrested the others involved, pretending they had acted as lawmen in a botched raid on rustlers. But it didn't take long for the truth to come out. When the case went to a grand jury, Courtright's and McIntyre's role in the murder was revealed. Fearing prosecution, the two fled to Mexico, fleeing the law once again. Ironically, they found refuge with Texas Rangers in El Paso, where they claimed that the men that they killed were rustlers and that they were just doing their job. It was a classic case of blurring the line between lawman and outlaw, something Courtright was all too familiar with. In 1884, Courtright returned to Fort Worth, hoping to revive his career with a private detective agency. But times were changing. One of the most notable new faces in town was Luke Short, a gambler and saloon owner fresh from Dodge City. He came to town already with a name for himself, following a deadly shootout in Tombstone. Courtright saw an opportunity and offered Short protection, but Short refused it. He had already survived the likes of Charlie Storms and didn't feel that he needed protection at all. On the evening of February 8, 1887, tensions came to a head. Courtright, possibly fueled by anger or a bruised ego, called out Luke Short outside the White Elephant Saloon. Bat Masterson, another famous gunslinger, witnessed the showdown. The two men faced each other in what would become one of the most legendary gunfights of the Old West. Courtright reached for his gun, but Short was faster. He shot Courtright's thumb off, leaving him unable to fire. As Courtright tried to switch hands, Short fired 4 more shots, killing him instantly. An investigation ruled that Luke Short had acted in self-defense, and charges were dropped. And with that, the story of long-haired Jim Courtright comes to a bloody end. For all his power and reputation, in the end, Luke Short didn't need his protection at all.
There's only one killer in Fort Worth, and that's me.
It's easy to romanticize these scenes, but the real Courtright was far more complex than Hollywood gives him credit for. A ruthless lawman, a violent killer, and ultimately another casualty of the Wild West. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Miss Kitty's Wild West Adventures. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and ding the bell for notifications. And in the meantime, I'll catch you on down the trail.